Hey everybody, Bo Johnson here with livingoverland.com. Today I want to talk about the installation of Yakima's new LockNLoad platform on our GX460. This is a size N rack. It's actually a pretty nice setup for this vehicle. The front of the rack comes just from the sunroof. The rear of the rack lines up just about where the door opening is. Before we get into my thoughts on the rack, let's actually take you into the garage and I'll show you how we installed this on the GX.
Okay, so the kit comes with 8 of these M6 T-nuts, and the first step is to slide them into the corner slots on the corner brackets. The key is to make sure that when you do, to align our holes and make sure everything fits properly. This will help in the total assembly when we go to put the front rail and the side rail on, that when those slide in place, it'll be easy to connect. We'll go ahead and do that for the other 3 corner pieces, and then we'll move over and start assembling our sides. So once we have our T-nuts in place, we'll have our front upside down, and we'll just go ahead and slide. So you'll see the geometry here. So that just slides into our corner like so. So we've got all of our holes are aligning. The front fairing is in place. Now we'll move to the other side and then start working on our side rails. So now we're moving over to the other side. Same as before, we're just lining everything up. So these front pieces are plastic, so they might be a little bit warped, but everything should slide in nice and secure. Again, making sure our holes line up. That all looks good. So you'll notice we're building this upside down. The key here is that when our slats come in, we have this track that runs along the side. It actually runs along the back or the side rails as well. That when our slats are bolted, they'll sit on top of this, but they're actually bolted in from the underside. So when this is all set up, we're going to keep this on sawhorses. We'll build out the perimeter, and then as we're putting those slats in, we'll actually slide them in, lift them up, and then bolt them in from the bottom. So then when we flip everything up, right side up to put it on the GX, all that hardware's hidden, and it keeps the load sitting on this track. What you doing, Rye? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our other sides. Okay. So with the corner pieces installed in both of our front and end rails, the next step is to install our side rails. They go in the same way that the fronts and back did. Once those are installed, I set everything up on our sawhorses, and then the next step is to install our fasteners. So we'll start with the top. Just your standard Allen head cap screw. We'll get that going. Making sure that the joint with our end caps, our corners, are nice and flush. We'll get that about finger tight like that, and we'll jump down to the lower screw. So these ones, so the top goes into that T-slot nut. The bottom is an actual screw that goes in at an angle and goes into the plastic cap. So we'll see if we can get that started. So these are a little tight. I thought about using an impact driver on these, but given that we're screwing through the aluminum and into plastic, I didn't feel that that was a good idea. Same thing with the bottom bolt that goes into the T-slot nut. You know, the impact on those drivers is probably going to be more than what that hardware can handle. All right, so do that tight. We'll come back and we'll hit everything with the torque wrench and make sure we're good to go. So we'll go around doing the same procedure for all four corners, and then we'll get started and we'll put the cross rails in. So the next phase is to put in our cross slats. So we'll be taking, for each one, 4 of these M6x16 button head cap screws, and they'll be going down into, each will have 4 holes, 2 on each side. And then in the bottom of our crossbars, we have these nut zerts that, as everything goes into place, we'll just thread in those. And I like doing one closest to me on one side and then the one farthest away on the other, just to help prevent that cross slat from tipping while it's in place. So that holds nice and level, and we'll come through and we'll get these other ones started. You'll notice there was a cutaway. There's a rib that runs down the middle on the underside. And there's a cutaway on each end. So we want to make sure that that cutaway sits inside on each end of that piece. And it is just flush on both sides. So we'll take these, we'll cinch these down until they just meet. And then we'll come back later, as with all these other corner pieces, and we'll grab the torque wrench and we'll torque those all down to spec. One thing that's handy is if you've installed any of Yakima's previous racks, which we've done quite a few over the years. Those racks will come with, some of them will come with, these handy little torque screwdrivers. So this one, if you can see, probably not, is 3.5 Newton meters. That's less than everything on here, but it's a good way to get things going. Get it finger tight, and then as soon as it starts clicking, you know that you've reached 3.5 Newton meters. Okay, what we'll do is we'll carry on all the way through the length of this roof rack, and then we'll install, there's a piece that comes in, ties this piece in here. Same with the front. We'll get those installed, then we can flip everything over. We've got a couple pieces we'll have to install on the GX. Once that's done, we'll lift this up, put it on the GX, and then we'll be able to mount our WeBoost cell phone booster. We'll be able to install the GRMS radio antenna and any of the other accessories we want to do. The next step is to attach the front and rear center braces. So this ties structurally the front and back crossbars with the load bars. So these go in fairly simply. You just slide this underneath. You're going to take your M6 by 25 button head cap screw that gets threaded in. The next step is to grab 3 of these clips.
I don't know that one.
Alexa thinks that I'm talking to her. So the next thing is to grab 3 of these clips. Set those there. The first one comes in. So what I found is the easiest thing to do is take that clip and slide it in, and then bring that bar up. You're going to take your T-bolt, and that gets pushed in, followed by a washer, and then your lock nut. I'm just going to put that on loosely. Okay, we're going to take the next one, slide it in, and you'll have to make sure it's got that little bit of a hook on it, that goes in. We'll set that over. Same thing with that one. We'll come back with those T-slot bolts, slide it up into place, wash your lock nuts, and then the third one up into place, washer, lock nut. Okay, so with those in place, we will grab that same torque limiting screwdriver from Yakima. We'll just get it tight, kind of eyeball to make sure that everything is perpendicular. We're going to take a 13mm socket and tighten these down. Okay. Yakima says that I'll grab in a second the torque wrench, but these all need to be torqued down to 7 Newton meters. Because the lock and load platform will be installed on the GX's factory load bars, you have to include the lock and load crossbar clamps. So you'll need 2 of these kits, and we'll go through and start installing them now. So you'll take the M6 by 16 button head cap screws that came originally with the kit, and we'll take this top base plate, and then that sits in like that. We'll now take our M6 screws or bolts, and we will feed them in like so. Alright, we will do that for all 4. Once those are done and we go to actually load this up onto the GX, this will sit down on those crossbars, and then we'll take the under U-bolt clamp, will actually come up through, and then using the supplied hardware from Yakima, we'll be able to put our nuts, our washers and nuts on there, cinch this down, and then the platform will sit on top of this, and then it'll be bolted down with these T-slot nuts that'll fit in just like that. And then we'll have those same clamps that we saw on the front and back support bars. Those will slide in, same washer, same nut there, slide that into place, everything bolts down and we'll have a nice rigid support.
So with the lock and load crossbar clamps installed but loosely on the crossbars on our GX, I had my neighbor come over and he helped me lift the platform up into place. Spent a couple of minutes getting everything centered. The back of the platform sits roughly with the door opening on the back, and then we're just centered side to side. Same thing with the mounts. Made sure that they're spaced equidistant off of each side, front and rear. With all that stuff ready to go, the next thing is to tie the lock and load platform to those mounts. So you'll take our little T-slot bolts, they'll fit in on top of those. This is the same clamps we used on the, so we'll face it the other direction. These are the same clamps we used on the center two front and rear supports. Now with these, you will want to be mindful of the orientation. There is a recommended orientation from Yakima, so you don't want both of them connecting to the same crossbar. You want that load separated between the two. And really it's just as simple as feeding our washers and nylock nuts on top. And then what we'll do is I'll get all of these tightened up. This is a 13 millimeter socket. Get these kind of hand tight. We'll do this for all 4 corners. With that in place, the next step is to install the washers and nuts that'll actually support or clamp the crossbar clamps to the crossbar itself. So we'll feed the washer on with the nut. And we will go grab our 10 millimeter ratcheting wrench to cinch that down. That installation video. Now let's get into the rack and talk about what we like. So this is the size N rack. As you see, it fits the GX really well. We're mounted to the factory crossbars. We're doing that because the GX specific mounts that you saw, say on the SEMA build that Yakima did, those were prototype mounts that won't be available until later on in 2020. So for now, we're just mounted to those factory bars. The nice thing is that once those GX specific attachments come out, we'll actually have 3 attachment points per So right here, B pillar will be attached, C pillar you'll attach, and D pillar you'll attach as well. So you'll have a total of 6 mounts holding the platform in place. We like the versatility of this. Yakima's coming out with accessories. We've got traction board mounts up front. We've also got the high lift jack mount that we're going to be installing. We're going to install our awning. We're going to install a bunch of tire carrier, all that sort of stuff. So the versatility there is really nice. Everything is T-slot, so easy to interchange and move. We had the high lift on there for a trip up to central Wyoming, and then pulled it on driving to town. So with the rack and the high lift mount, I actually went with so that's a 7-foot door that we weren't able to clear with all the doors there. One thing I want to note is wind noise. So Yakima has included in the kits this maybe 1-inch drop front fairing. We've not pulled that off to see what the wind noise is like without it, but without traction boards up on the front, there is a fair amount of noise. And really that gets into, 65, 70 miles an hour is when you're really starting to notice it. And part of that is because of the sunroof right here. There's not a whole lot of insulation there to protect against that wind noise. But if you get up to 80 miles an hour on the interstate here, you will notice a substantial amount of wind noise if you don't have this rack loaded. Second, we put traction boards up there. It helps to deflect that airflow going across those crossbars, and hardly anything. So that's one of the nice things. So if you're like me, daily driver, you're not going to have your rack fully loaded all the time. You are going to notice wind noise if you're say, driving on the interstate going to the next town. Everything seems very solid on this rack. You'll notice just a little bit of shake there, but it's not bad. It's actually better than what I was expecting for these factory crossbars. We had this loaded up going to Prince Cabin a few weeks ago, and didn't have any vibration issues. We were on the interstate, we were on the highways, we were on corrugated roads, and it felt solid. It never heard anything from one side. Overall, we're really happy with how well the rack installed, how well it's performing, and check back later on this year when we actually swap out the factory crossbars and mounts for the Yakima GX specific mounts. Until then, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.